Over the past few weeks, I have travelled all over the country. I've been in Devon, I've been in Newcastle, I've been in Chingford, today I'm here in South London, I've spoken in Birmingham and Sheffield. There have been so many places, and I am speaking to people who have signed up to be members of our party and people who are very interested in what we're building, because this is an alternative to what we've been used to in British politics, a truly democratic socialist party, and I'm going to carry on doing that in the run-up to conference, where my role is to making sure that the grassroots are at the heart of what we're building, that this isn't led by MPs, and it is truly democratic with maximum member democracy.
Welcome everyone. My name's, as I said, Margot Hill. Andrea Gilbert, who's a local trade unionist and activist, does a lot with housing and travellers and within her own union. Unfortunately, she's just gone down with COVID, so she's not here. So I hope you'll bear with me. Look, I'm looking forward to tonight's meeting because we've got a fantastic array of speakers, and as importantly, we've got a fantastic bunch of people in the room who all want your party to happen. I know it's been a very weird couple of months, but we want it. We're all engaged in activity, and we need to talk about how we're going to make it happen.
Ever since Margaret Thatcher said there is no such thing as society, they have worked hard to convince us that neoliberalism is all we're ever going to have and that solidarity is dead. But our history tells us otherwise. Every single thing that we have, that we are so proud to have, from the weekend, for women to have the right to vote, for the NHS, that has been won through collective struggle. And people at the time were told, dream on, it will never happen.
I want to thank Zarah for her courage. And I'll tell you why you need courage. If you've ever been in the Houses of Parliament, or if you've ever gone on a TV station or anything like that, right, you're treated like shit. That's the truth of it, yeah? That's the first thing they try to do, right? They talk amongst themselves, there's these posh voices in there, and eventually they talk to you, and then whatever there is, it's like a machine gun. Everything you say is wrong, whatever it is. It takes courage to turn around and say, you're all wrong, and actually I represent people who haven't got a voice, and I'm going to be their voice here, and I'm not going to be silenced.
I joined this meeting because there hasn't been yet a similar meeting in my borough, and I'm really willing to get more actively involved. So, very nice to meet you all, and be keen to know how we can be more, get to know each other across boroughs and places. Yeah. Sorry, I was very shy on camera. Sorry.
No.
In my experience, the way you get to know people really is by joining the action, by being on the picket line, by going to the union meeting, by demonstrating and walking like this Stand Up to Racism up Tooting High Street and right the way up to Tooting Beck. And, that's how you get to know people. And that's how you meet the community as well. That's how you get the feedback from them. And I just think that the sooner we get to organising within our community against the things that are happening on the ground here, as well as the things that are happening above the ground, in the wider world, the better.
When we were talking about having this meeting tonight, what we were most concerned about was how do we contact people? How do we know who it is who's interested and who we need to be getting together for this meeting? And we realised that at that point we didn't know, and so our only way of contacting people and getting them together, and it has been reasonably successful, is through groups that we're already involved in. So we need to continue with that, I think, because we've already, all of us, got links, if it's in their local neighbourhood or if it's in a group that they belong to through their work, through their union, all those kinds of things, and that's what we need to be building on.
Well, would you consider that the 2017 election will have similar issues, or I guess we'll be looking at the same policies, things that we'd want to achieve with your party, or do you think that we're moving away from Labour, and in what kind of way?
I think, people have talked about the rise of fascism and kind of the right. So I think it's got to be about people's day-to-day existence, and that's kind of like you were saying about reversing austerity, about kind of cost of living. making big impacts on people's everyday life, whether that's the 2-child benefit cap or energy bills, or just compassion in schools as well, in terms of there's more and more schools who have the kind of really harsh, you can't be ill, come in if you've got a fever, it doesn't matter, because schools for learning, where there's, where if a child is ill, then they need to be at home, and that's okay. Those kinds of so people's day-to-day lives need to be improved by kind of quite basic, simple kind of reversals of austerity. And of course, like Gaza it's been a thing for years and years and years, but now it's urgent in a way that it wasn't in 2017.
I think, at least for me personally, the main thing would be, well, two things. I'd say the NHS. I think that's something we all take it for granted at the end of the day. It's something you can always rely on, and I think it's also, from a strategic point of view, I think it's the best example of socialism you can show to anybody. Just, you take anybody, even if they're the most rabid right winger and they have a broken leg, you say, and you help them fix it, and you say you don't have to pay a penny, even that will help get through to them. And I think that's a really important tool for us, and it's also just massively important in everybody's lives, because at one point or another we're all going to need proper quality healthcare, and we can't all have that without the NHS.
Yeah, and I won't say anything after this. And it's Nigel Farage's weak point, because he wants to get rid of the NHS and have an insurance system. Not only does he deny climate change, like Trump, but he wants to get rid of the NHS. And in my view, you're right, he'd be very vulnerable on that.
I think part of the success of Nigel Farage's kind of rise at the moment is the fact that the right has really been able to mobilise on social media in such a huge way. So Nigel Farage currently has the most TikTok followers out of all the UK politicians, and obviously there's bigger powers at play, because you have Elon Musk, who owns X, and X has become just this very a horrible place where people are just under a barrage of all of this messaging, but that is what is targeted young men, and making a huge swathe of young men lean to the right, and you just see it's actually kind of alone in people's bedrooms that people are logging on and receiving all of this. So I think I don't think the left has managed to use social media in the same way. So I think there really needs to be a huge investment in online sort of presence, and how we can combat that in the online sphere as well.
But the left doesn't own any social media platforms. Wouldn't that make a difference?
Well, I guess Blue Sky, is meant to be the alternative, but I guess that is the question, isn't it? How do we find a social media place where that can be sort of combated, or do we go into right-wing spaces on social media? I don't have the answer. I just know that that's sort of how I know that that's a huge area where we need to sort of really look at what we do there.
We were discussing what the idea of a party belonging to us really means to us, and the word that really shone through from our discussion was that we want to feel empowered. That's a word that we really felt resonated with us. We briefly touched on how that could possibly translate into exploring an open manifesto, a manifesto that is written by, contributed to the membership, that give the membership the power to decide what the manifesto says, vote on exactly what the manifesto contains.
So you talked about maximum democracy, and so the things that have been suggested so far are sortition and one member, one vote referendums on policy questions, and it seems to me neither of those are kind of the high point of the democracy of the Labour movement. I'm a trade union rep, and if they said that our conference was going to be, reps were going to be decided by a random like pulled out of a hat. We would be very annoyed, and part of the reason we fight the anti-union laws is the idea of a ballot that goes to your house is not about kind of collective decision making and discussion, it's about individual decision making and discussion, which is not the point of the labour movement and the reason that we've got the potential and the ability to change the world. And I think that we need to focus on those kind of collective democracies. And so I guess, what do you think about that is one question, but I suppose more importantly, if we don't like that form of democracy, what can the people in groups like this do to change the way that your party works? Because at the moment it seems like it's not really clear.
Yeah.
We've got so many lessons on what we shouldn't do. We've tried, the last one was momentum. We do not want a group at the top with the membership stuff marching us on and off like a stage army, which is exactly what happened with momentum. Political parties should not be private companies where the data is only with some people. We haven't even got the data about who's said they want to be with us in Wandsworth. It's absolutely crazy. And just echoing Ruth's point there, they did exactly this in momentum. I haven't even heard the word sortition. It's never been part of the labour movement as far as I know. That is not democracy at all. Democracy is sitting around saying, what does that woman feel? What does that guy feel? And yeah, I agree with them. I will send that person a conference. I will vote for them. That's democracy. That's active democracy. Not this bloody lottery. It's undemocratic. Absolutely undemocratic. So all we've got to do is to see what momentum did. I will. And we'll say we'll do the opposite of that, because Corbyn came in during that. That's why men eventually went. But we've got so many lessons on what not to do. We know what we need is democracy right from the bottom. We need those membership lists. We need to know who's, so we can contact them, get them in the rooms, and get the voting started for the policies and the way we want to structure this party.
I don't agree with sortition either. Everywhere I go, people are with sortition. But I'm going to be realistic with you. We've got a month until conference. Undoing that is going to be very hard. So how do we make it better? And I think we need to argue maybe for a more democratic version of the sortition that is currently being spoken about, where if people don't have voting rights at the conference itself, they have at least speaking rights. I think we need to widen some of the definitions of sortition. I think OMOV is very important, and there was a fight to even have OMOV. There were debates about having just some hand-picked delegates. And I think another thing is there should be amendments allowed on motions. I think we need to be able to have that sorted out ahead of conference. In the future, though, I think the framework we should be looking at is probably all member meetings where you elect delegates, so your local branches elect delegates and goes to conference. And I completely agree, we are not here to build momentum. We are here to build a democratic organisation that has member democracy right at the very heart of it, and that's why I think local groups should be able to access membership. You should also have resources to run campaigns, have organisers. I think it's not a radical demand if branches, if they are organised in boroughs, or something that you can geographically identify where organisers are hired, and that's how we organise in local communities. And just finally, I think we can make politics exciting. I think the question that you asked about young people are incredibly informed about politics through Black Lives Matter, through the environment movement, through Palestine. We have a generation that is not taking shit and is not going to accept scraps. And I think what we need to do is provide them with the future that they've been denied. I went to university over a decade ago, but I was lied to, like many others. I feel like I've been scammed. I was told all you need to have is good grades, all you need to do is go to university, all you need to do is have a degree. And I did everything society asked of me. And when I graduated, where were those well-paid graduate jobs? Where was the housing? I've done very well for someone of my generation, but if I look at my friends and if I look at everyone else I went to university with, struggling to find well-paid jobs, they're probably going to rent for a very long time, and even then it will be incredibly hard to own a house, and people have just been lied to, and I think we need to offer that vision of hope, and I think that's the point that you someone made about the commonality that we have around anger. The right don't have a monopoly on anger. No. I'm angry, people in this room are angry, and we should be angry, and we should channel that to fight for the good life. And I think that was the point about the people who aren't in this room, the people that we have to fight for, having less time at work and more time with their family and more time with their friends, more access to green spaces, housing, healthcare, not an issue. That's a vision of society that we can bring people towards, and we have to fight for that. And I think that is what this party is all about. And then just to wrap off, because I'm conscious of time, this has never been about me or Jeremy. This is something much bigger than any of us. And I take that very seriously. We have to stop Nigel Farage, we have to stop the far right from taking power, but we also have to give people hope, and we have to make their lives better. And I will keep speaking up for democracy, for the grassroots, for a movement that centres working class people and gives them the power to shape this party and ultimately shape their lives. That has to be our North Star, and I won't stop.
My name's Layla. I came to the meeting today because I'm passionate about people being heard, people being represented. I feel like today has been a really nice glimpse into people being represented in the way that they should be. I think we've lived in a society that has been mostly middle and upper class white men representing the population for a very long time, and that's a big contributing factor as to why I've come today. My job is working in mental health in prisons in Surrey. I work across 5 different prisons within Surrey, and the people have not represented and not heard the people that I've worked with for a very, very long time, and I think it's really essential that politicians are understanding the impact that they are having on marginalised groups, and ultimately those marginalised groups are the people that do not end up coming to meetings that are political, and understanding the concepts that make up our society today. And I think it's really important that we have a party like your party, which will hopefully do a better job at representing those marginalised groups.